All right, hey there. Sam with you here, mid-morning. What are we, Wednesday, January 10th, and I had a member interested in a look at waves to Bitcoin. Now, this is one I have not done before, so I was kind of curious to see how it's been trading. I've got the daily up here on Bittrex. Now, as I like to do, let's go over to CoinGecko. We're at 64 on their scale, and I always encourage you to consider coins at 50 or higher. So we got a pretty strong project here, 1.2 billion in market cap. Lots of development interest and lots of activity. I'll leave this for you to do some fundamental research. If we come down here, well, of course, it's all traded against Bitcoin. Now, the bulk of the trading here at Tidex, I tell you the truth, I'm not familiar with that exchange. First, I've seen it. That's where 51% of the trading is happening. The 22% on Bittrex and 11% on Binance. We're going to look at it on Bittrex. So here's the daily on it. So here's when it hit Bittrex, and we're back to it's June 20th of 2016. So here's the classic. I don't know how many alts we've seen that in, but that's the classic alt pattern. We rip it up, then we give it all back. So one thing that caught my eye, whenever you see that, first question is, well, is it trading technically? So this was kind of interesting. So you can see here, we go down to that low, we go 2 ticks in front of the 50, and so, that doesn't happen randomly, right? So clearly algos are in. So they front run it here at the 50 and take it right to their target, take some profit. Now we're getting the reaction. So very good sign. Not surprising that algos are in here. So, they'll trade it long or short. That, it's just software. It's not some guy standing there pulling the trigger. So we look here and we say, okay, well, does this matter? Does this up? Is that 1, 2? You could make that case that you've got a very deep 2. I propose to you that it doesn't. In the long term, we may come back and relook at that, but right now, I don't think it matters. It wouldn't affect my trading decisions, thinking that I'm in a 1-2. I just know that I've had a pump, I've had a dump, but I've given it all back. I've come back to this baseline of support here. But now I'm starting to move away from this, and I'm seeing good signs here. I've got higher highs and I've got higher lows. So maybe we've got a little 5-wave structure that's underway. So even on the daily, just a first look at this, I can see, okay, well, there's 1, 2, there's my 3, there's a 4, maybe there's a 5. So if that's the case, well, we've got deep overlap here from the 4 to the 1. Let me take the wave off of that. So what do we have? We have a leading diagonal, which is exactly what you might anticipate in a 1 wave as we struggle to get a new trend started. So it seems relatively technical. So I can see an A, B, C into my 4, and I can see some. Now this, when we go to the hourly, there is a little bit of a little stop run here on that second, because it looked like the second was over, and there was, for whatever reason, there was some reaction that blew all the stops out there. So we end up with this. Okay, we can live with that. So somebody, there were some stops taken out there clearly, which we'll see when we get down to the hourly. The point I'm trying to make here is if I've got a leading diagonal, I'm going to pull from the low of the 1 to the high of the 3. That's where I'm going to get my next entry for my 4. What do we do? 618 to the tick, right? It's it's just I show it to you over and over and over again. So hopefully you're starting to learn there, and that that's a trade that you take. So here's the 618. Here's the algo target, negative 23.6. We know they were in on the way down, and no reason to anticipate they wouldn't be in on the way up. So there's the classic sign. Now remember, you identify algos not by the entry but by the target. Do we get a reaction at one of their favorite targets? This is the primary one, is the negative 23.6. That's how you know algos are in, just like we did it on the way down. We saw the reaction at the negative 23.6 from the 50. Again, it's not random. That's classic algo trading. So here, we're, again, as I will often tell you, the dominant work that drives the market is off of what's happening with the algorithms. We're using the Elliott wave to try and surf around behind them because we don't have the, well, maybe some of you do, but we're operating on the assumption that we don't have the deep pockets that whomever is behind the algorithm, call it a hedge fund, who knows, who's behind it, but we don't have the deep pockets. So we're trying to find more precision so that we don't have to take as much risk as they can afford to do. So I can look here. The other thing just kind of pops out at my, as I look here, that's kind of interesting. So it looks like we have some structural activity here. I'd probably put the 1.5 on that to catch that. But let's go down and look at it on the 1 hour, and I'll show you a few things here that can be useful. So if we now open that up, and I'll see there it is to the 618 to the tick, right? I mean, it's as good as it gets. So there we go. So let me get it so we can see it, so we can work with it. So that's likely the 4. This is our third up here. That's the assumption. Now I've got this count off of the daily, so I might check here and say, well, this kind of gets my eye. Is that kind of interesting? So here, look. So see, it works both ways, right? So you're always dealing. It's always a fib fight. So here's this. We get this nice 5-wave structure down here, likely the A wave. Here's the B, and we actually test it twice to the right, just as we did this one here, right? So here's the 618 here. It's front run by a few ticks. They rip it down to the -23, but it pushes through even a little further to get to the 618. So we're going from 618 to 618. Right? I mean, it just happened. It's the same thing, guys, over and over and over again. I've shown it probably over 100 times through the course of these videos. So hopefully you're starting to see that. Now here was the little FU from so whatever happened here. So this looked like we had a good 2 here. So if I go back, before we knew we had a diagonal, all we knew was that we had a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into a 1. So we had an impulsive move here. Here's the 1 high. We don't overlap it. So we had the 1. This looked like it might have been a good 2. Now, I was not trading this, but I can just see what happened here. So it looks like we're off to a good start. So from here, if you're a buyer here, knowing that the 2 can go from the 50 to 786, probably a little oscillator pump there as well. So we get down in the oversold zone. That's a very reasonable place to play for a long, given that you had the 5-wave structure here to validate this as a good low. Not to mention the fact that we had the algo pull and the -23.6 there. So that was a very reasonable place to get long. It looks like you're off to a good start, and it just gets slammed. So clearly, if I had been trading it, I would have been stopped out. So we have to move this over. So that's a bummer for anyone who bought that, but that's welcome to trading. That happens. So we get. So what do we get? So then we go off of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So looks like we got to look at that and say, well, if this is a diagonal, does that work? Well, if this were my 1, this were my 2, it doesn't work because I would have a diagonal in my third. So this is kind of a little bit of a bear. So we got to look at that and say, okay, well, maybe I've got this. So if I'm going to look for that subdivision here, I may have to do something like this. This is, I'd want to measure it. So 3, 4, and 5. Let's just double check that. So I mean, this is, here's the nuts and bolts of, technical analysis. So you've got to do the work to check these. So if that's a 1, 2, does that make sense? So if I'm playing as a 1, 2, yeah, that's right to the 50. So that's very, very potentially a good 1, 2. Now we're going to be extreme here on the relationship between the 1 to the 3. But if I'm going to get that. Well, here's, we're through the 300, just shy of the 3618, so fairly extreme. So likely you have 1, 2, then you get a 3, 4, 5 to complete the 3. So that, it's not the prettiest count, but this wick down here, means we've got to get a 1, 2 here so that we stay impulsive. So now if we look at that and go, well, would that 2 have made sense relative to that? Well, that's going to be deep, no doubt about it. So here's the 786 here now, but take note of what happens. So this whatever, some event, who knows what's causing that, but that rips through. There's stop running, but then look what happens on the revisit. So maybe that's the A, and we get the C here. This is the classic crypto. That's the push. Then we get the shallow C. The C does not go below the length of the A wave, but we double bottom here right on the 618. So that gives me confidence here that, okay, well, this works. This makes sense. Even though I had this spike, this long wick that kind of screws the count, means you push for a 1 here. Now, if you're looking at that going, well, wait a minute. If that's 1, 2, how solid is my 2 here? Well, the fact that I get a double bottom, I test twice at the 618, tells me that likely I've got a good count there, right? That does not happen randomly. Up we go, and here I get, so I'm going to change that degree here so it makes a little more sense. So let's go to white, and I'll go up a degree. We'll go to minuet. Okay. Did I get it? No. Let's try that again. Sorry. I like it to make sense, so we're not. So you get the idea of it's waves within waves, and we have degrees separating each other. So there's my 2, 3. Now where do we go for? Okay, let's look here. So we go up for the 3. Now I'm pulling all the way from the 2 low. Okay, so yet again, it's extreme here. So we get through. There seems to be, kind of spiky wick action here. So there's the pump through it. So very reasonable that, if had I been trading this, I would have bought it there and I would have been stopped out. But look, so the stop is so small, right? So I mean, I'll take that little loser all day. That's not going to ruin my day. It's not going to blow my account up. So if you're a buyer here on the 618, you get a little reaction, but then you just get spiked down and down it goes. So you look at that and go, okay, was there any other evidence that might support this? So what am I seeing here? Well, look here. So here we go yet again, right? So here's the 618, down we go. Now it goes through. So we're getting pushed through just as we had here, we're getting this volatility, these volatility spikes. Here's the algo target from the 618. They push it through, they get through. So what does it mean? Okay, I've got a diagonal. Well, if I've got a diagonal, remember we're going to pull from the absolute low, right? So I'm kind of going back through what we started with. So from my low, my diagonal goes right to the 618, right? So I'm kind of working you through how I got to all of that. So 618 to 618 to the tick, what does that mean? Well, now I'm looking for my 5th. So I'm looking for some sort of 5-wave structure to come out of this. Look where... Interestingly, look where we go, to the resistance on the way back, right to the 50. So we pull here. Now look where we are again, to the 618 again. So you can see this is trading incredibly technically. So I mean, there's just algos are all over the place in here. So this is what they'll do. So they're buyers here, sellers here, or there's a different algorithm written to sell it here. The buyers here, their target is up above. Their target is up here, right? The algo here that sold it, that target is down here. Which way is it going? Well, that's where we let them sort of sort that out. All we're trying to do is kind of get in behind them, and kind of be aware of what they're doing. And clearly they're in here. We want to be aware of what they're doing so that we can get on, kind of tuck in behind them, if you will. That's kind of how I think of it. So if that's a 4, so from an Elliott count, how can I use Elliott wave to help me deal with, this constant ping pong between algo pivots? Well, if I've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm in a leading diagonal, well, I know that this algo here, since the trend is higher, I always defer to where the trend is. So even though there's an algo that sold it here that pushed that down, I'm trying to complete a 5-wave structure to the upside. So I'm going to play that. I'm going to defer to the dominant theme here, which is we're putting in a 5-wave structure to get up to put in a 5th here and complete a 1-wave. So I'm going to stay with that on the assumption that now all I've done here is put in a 1 and I'm trying to get in a 2. So let me pull that off just so I can show you the count here that would set up for a new trade. So you can see here, if I open this up, we can get, likely we've got a 1-wave underway here. So if I come into that, remember it's a 1-wave, so it could be a diagonal. So it looks to me like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 up for a 5. So now it's a diagonal, note, because the 4 just barely overlaps. We get a little, it's just the wick, right? The body holds it, but we get a little, so diagonal. Okay, so what does that mean? If it's a diagonal, I'm going to change the degree here. So I'm going to check both of them. Actually, I would check both of them. But since I've got a diagonal, I'm going to go from my pivot here, my very technical pivot here. What do we do? Here. Okay, so I'm going to go from my 618 here. I'm going to go up to my 3 high. Well, that's a little shallow, all right? But what do we do here? Where's the highest probability zone for a 4? Well, you guys know this. It's between the 38 and the 50 here. So right here, we go right. So there's the Vegas wave. We've got all. Here's the 1 high. The body holds it. Yeah, we get a little pop through it, but that's what defines it as a diagonal. So I come up here. I complete a 5-wave sequence. I'm a little shy of the algos don't get it, which could mean they're not done. But if I work on the assumption that I've got a completed 5-wave sequence here, what am I looking for? I'm looking for the wave 2. Where's the wave 2? Highest probability zone between the 50 and the 618. Where do we go? 50 to the tick. You think the algos are in here? Hell yes, they're in here. Okay, so we've got 1, 2. All right, so this is, I mean, this is as technical as it gets. This is like Algo 101. This is what they do. Here's the 2. Now, this is their first target. Are we going to go up and get there? Well, we shall see. But let's change the color on that. Increase the, so let me take this down a degree so it makes sense. So we'll go down to subminuet. Okay, so do you see how this is just, it's the same thing I show you guys over and over. Like, I've never seen this chart before, but I did not preview this. I'm just doing this on the fly because, well, one, I've been doing this for a long time, so that helps, right? So I know what to look for. But just I can't get any more technical than this. It's absolutely from 618 to 618 to the 50 to the 6. And it started all the way back here when I took you guys back to the first thing that we did when we went to the daily, and we said, well, wait a minute, let's see if it's technical. What was the first thing that we did? Is it technical? Are the algos in here? What was the first thing we did right here? To the 50 to the negative 23.6. That tells you the algorithms are in. So there's no reason to anticipate that technical trading won't continue until it doesn't, right? So you assume that it will continue. So now where are we? Well, now I've got a perfect 2 here. Now that doesn't mean so if you're trading that, you'd be operating on the assumption that pivot is going to hold. So you could be a buyer right here where it is. I mean, without any, so you could look at that and say, well, but Sam, we've been going 618 to 618. So yeah, could easily come back down there. So if you're going to be a buyer here, if you're going to buy on the 50, I'll move this off so it's not in your way. So you could be a buyer here. Maybe you take a partial at the, we get a little pullback here at the 50, willing to load a little bit more here, knowing that your stop's going to be very tight. Because we know that a 2 can go as deep as the 786. Maybe that's more risk than you want to tolerate. So so that's kind of interesting. Look, so here's the 50 from the larger pull. Right? Remember we pulled from the 3 to get the 4? Well, here's that 50. Here's the 618. So I like this support zone down here. But the first thing we did was react at the 50. So it may not come down here. It may be that we're off to the races here. That's the thing. You don't know. So if you're going to trade it, well, that's the first target. But if we're going to get a 3, it's going to be higher than that. We're looking for the 1618, 175 box. So if it's going to do that, well, if we're going to get a third, we're going to expect that third to be impulsive. We're going to look for a motive wave there. So we're going to look for a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 subdivision within that third. So I could trade it here and say, okay, tight stop. If it takes it out, no problem. I got a small loser, and I'll look for a retest of the 618 because it sure has been respecting the 618s. So maybe this is the A wave. Certainly possible. Maybe that's just the A wave, but you risk being left out of the trade. So what do we see here? So if I blow this up, let's go to the 15-minute and take a look at that. Do we get just the right subdivision? Yeah, we do. So you can see here. So we get an A, we get a little 3 wave, and then we come down for the B. There's right to the 50. So I've got a little ABC. So what am I looking for here? Well, now I'm looking for the 1 wave. So if that's the 2. Right? Now I'm looking for the 1 wave of the third, knowing that a 1 wave in the third can be a diagonal. Do I have a diagonal there? Most likely. So if I'm going to break this all the way down, I'm going to go 1, 2. That looks like that could be 3. There's the overlap. Maybe I'm doing that. Maybe I'm doing just as I did before. So we're a diagonal within a diagonal. This was a diagonal with that overlap. Maybe I'm going to do another diagonal here in the 1 of the third. So that third is going to, so if we hit like this. So let me let's go to blue and I'll put the wave on that so you get the idea. Okay, so this could very well be that we're putting in a diagonal to complete the 1 wave of the third wave. Because that third wave is going to subdivide just as we always anticipate they're going to subdivide. So could that be the 4? Could be. How do we know? We don't know until we get a higher high. Then we can confirm, okay, I've got a 5-wave structure. I've got a leading diagonal, increasing the probability that I've got a 1 wave. So what do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into a 1, 2. So I get 1, 2, 1, 2. Where's the next trade? That's the 2. So look, here's the 50 at the 50 at this 2. Next time I want to be a buyer, I want to draw for that. I want to be a buyer between the 50 and the 618. That's the highest probability zone. But I'm just, for all I know, that's the 1, 2. Now I'm looking for so here's the moneymaker, the third of the third. That's the one you want to get in if you can. So if that's the one, we come down for the 2. That's the one you take because you're looking to get the third of the third. Here's my 1, 2. It would be the third here, the third of the third, assuming I get a 1, and assuming that that we stop there. I mean, we don't know where that goes. We're looking for a pivot and then a retracement. But right now, all we're seeing is, starting to get a little reaction there. But you see, that's how you put the pieces together. It's all just probabilities. There's no certainty. I don't know that pivot is going to hold. I don't know that. But I can play the odds there. And I can get in the market there with very reasonable risk reward. So even if I just took it off this next little retracement here at that 2. So to the first algo target, if I'm going to put it there, well, that's 3.5 to 1. If I don't want to risk that much and I want to say, I'm just going to give it, I'm going to assume that my pivot is in because of the technical bounce off the 50. Well, now what do I have? Well, now I've got 9.69 to 1. On the assumption it's not coming back here, that pivot is in. Why do I assume that? Because of how technical it is. And I'm in the high probability zone for a 2. And it literally ticks the 50 and reacts. Algo tracks. That they leave tracks when they're in, as I've just taken you through through the entire chart. Beautifully technical. Man, I'm long-winded today. All right, that's 20 minutes. Okay, I'm going to stop there.